Today we're going to the asteroid belt to mine uranium. But first we need to completely obliterate our opponent's station. Today we're going to learn Septikon. It's a game published by Hobby World and designed by Konstantin Seleznev. Septikon is a strategic two-player turn-based battle that is sci-fi to the max. You and your opponent are both on separate asteroids in charge of running uranium mining stations equipped for battle. However, uranium is scarce in the asteroids, and in order for you to have exclusive rights to all the uranium, you must completely disable your opponent's mining station to the point where there's no possible way on this turn or on any future turns your opponent can deal damage back to you. Your battle-equipped mining station is made up of 8 underground levels, where your crew of obedient clones are waiting for your orders to activate the modules within the station, or to go out to level 9, the asteroid surface, and become gunners. Setup of this game is simple. Start with 5 resources in every warehouse. In Septikon, you can unfreeze clones equal to the amount of oxygen resources you have, which we'll cover more in detail in a little bit. Oxygen equals clones. Since you start with 5 oxygen cubes, you get to start with 5 clones. Now comes the fun part. Strategically place them wherever you want inside your station, with the exception of the asteroid surface or in your warehouses. Once you know the rest of how this game works, you'll start to build your strategy and place your clones accordingly. Then put your die, extra clones, damage tokens, rockets, satellites, nukes, and energy shields off to the side within easy reach of each player. The game, as released on Kickstarter, will be equipped with the detailed plastic minis and nuke tokens. Turns in this game move pretty quickly. Each turn you will roll a 6-sided die which acts like a limited resource of time. Then you strategically choose one and only one of your clones and move it that many spaces. The clone has to move spaces equal to the number rolled on the die, and it cannot backtrack. If there was something blocking the clone's movement, that clone then would not be able to move in that direction. And another thing, a clone cannot occupy the same place as another clone. So when you move a clone, if that clone was strategically moved to a module within the station, they would then activate the module. Now, some modules' activation is mandatory and some optional, which we'll talk about in just a minute. After you activate the module, if you had any BioDrones in your opponent's station, and BioDrones are like an invading army, then you would have the option of moving each of your BioDrones the number that was shown on your initial die roll. Next, if you have any rockets or landing capsules heading over to your opponent's station, you move each one closer to your opponent's station equal to the number from your initial die roll. Next, you'll see if anything is destroyed and remove those units. Then check to see if victory conditions are met. If not, then it becomes your opponent's turn. I think maybe you're starting to see that your initial die roll affects all movement on your turn. Usually I don't discuss strategy tips too early in the game, But with this game, the luck of rolling the die won't have much to do with your success if you don't strategically place and move your clones where they will have options no matter what number is rolled on the die. We're going to look a little bit closer at your stations, which include 4 zones: production, battle, armory, and warehouses. But first, let's see how your clones move around from one zone to the next. When moving your clone through the station, you move them up and down the levels and out to the surface through the passages shown here. Your clones can move anywhere in the station except into the warehouses. When your station is damaged, your clones cannot move through the damage, as this creates a barricade. Also, if your opponent sends over BioDrones to invade your station, your clones cannot move through them, as they will act like barriers as well. We also have 4 locks in the station, where if your clone starts its turn on one of these locks, it acts as a teleport, where if you spend 1 unit of movement, you can move from one lock to any of the other locks and then continue with the rest of your movement. Levels 1 and 2 make up the production zone, which is the deepest and most protected zone of your station. When you choose to move one of your clones to a module within the production zone, they must activate the module as long as you have the resources to do so. The production zone is where your clones produce goods that will fuel the attack capabilities, defense capabilities, and the repair of your station. Production modules are easy to understand, as most all of these modules show what resources, if any, that they consume in the lower right corner, and then what resources they produce in the upper left corner. There are 3 special modules in the zone: the repair module, the sensor cabin, and the nuclear armory. The repair module will work similar to the repair modules located in the battle zone, which we will look at next. But this module lets you repair 1 damage to your station while consuming 1 energy resource. The sensor cabin lets you destroy 1 BioDrone that your opponent sent over to your station, and you can convert that BioDrone into any resource of your choosing. And the nuclear armory module consumes resources and produces a nuclear warhead token that we'll talk about in a minute. Level 7 and 8, closest to the surface, make up your battle zone. When you choose to move one of your clones to a module within the battle zone, activation of this module is optional. Most modules in the battle zone will require you to consume the resource shown on the bottom of the module, and will also require a gunner to activate it. In case you forgot, a gunner is just a clone that you move to the surface, which is level 9. The battle zone lets you attack your opponent's station by having your gunners fire lasers, launch rockets, and landing capsules. They can detonate thermite mines and zap your opponent's clones with mind control technology to turn that clone into a spy. The battle zone also lets you defend your station by letting your gunners launch defense satellites and energy shields. The last major function of the battle zone is to repair damage to your station. No gunner required for this. We're going to focus more on talking about these zones in depth in just a minute, but first we're going to talk about the other zones in your station. In levels 3 through 6 of your station, you have your warehouses and your armory. The armory works a little different than the modules in the production zone and the battle zone. When a clone is standing on a module in the armory, all of your clones and BioDrones will be equipped with that weapon for as long as a clone stands on the armory module. Once equipped, your clone or BioDrone will be able to attack anyone within that weapon's range around them. The drill creates an attack range of 1 square in any direction from your clone or BioDrone. The vibro cannon hits only squares 2 spaces from your clone or BioDrone. And if your BioDrones or clones are equipped with explosives, they have the option to sacrifice themselves to damage the module where they were located. Moving to the sides of the armory, you have your warehouses. These are where your resources are stored. Since your warehouses are fully automated, this is the only zone your clones cannot enter. You take resources from your warehouses when you consume them, and place resources in your warehouses when you produce them. You start the game with 5 resources in each warehouse, but they can hold a maximum of 10 resources each. Your warehouses work efficiently, where the first resources consumed are always the resources closest to the entrance. And when you produce resources, you fill in the furthest spaces from the entrance first, and then work your way closer toward the entrance. When a warehouse cell gets damaged, if the damage marker ends up within the cell in the middle of your resources, it destroys the resource on the damaged space, and then creates a barricade so you can't access any resources beyond the damaged cell. If the damaged cell is closer to the warehouse entrance than any of your resources, then your warehouse is completely shut down to the point where you can't store new resources that you produce or use any resources in the warehouse until the damage is repaired. Disabling your opponent's warehouses so he can't launch an attack against you or make any repairs is one of the ways to win the game and completely disable your opponent's station where there's nothing they can do. So maybe you lost a clone in battle, or you feel that 5 clones isn't quite enough. Well, just remember one thing. Oxygen production is the way you get more clones. In order to unfreeze a clone, you must first produce oxygen on the same turn, more than you have clones. Then you may unfreeze a clone at one of your open locks. If all of your locks are either destroyed or occupied, you cannot unfreeze a clone. One thing to note is that if you lose an oxygen, you continue to keep all of your clones. Now that we know a little bit more about how this game works, let's take a closer look at the fun toys included with your station to help you maximize damage that you'd inflict on your opponent's station. And then you can set up a good defense for your own station. Remember that most of the Battlezone modules require resources and a gunner to activate. So a benefit of having more than one gunner in play is that you have the option to activate a module in the battle zone by paying the resource cost once for each gunner you have in play. For the defense of your station, if you have your clone move to an energy shield battle module, your gunner can send out an energy shield a number of spaces equal to your initial die roll. Once placed, the energy shield does not move. When an energy shield is hit by things such as a rocket, a nuke-equipped rocket, a landing capsule, or a laser blast, the rocket, nuke, or landing capsule would be destroyed and the laser blast would have no effect. In this case, when the energy shield is hit, it is required that its owner pay 1 energy to restore it. If its owner was completely out of energy, the shield would be destroyed. The exception to this is if the energy shield was hit by a satellite. In that case, the energy shield would be destroyed permanently. Satellites are another option for the defense of your station. If you have your clone move to a satellite battle module, your gunner can send out a satellite meeple a number of spaces equal to your die roll. Once placed, the satellite does not move. Satellites have the ability to shoot down rockets, nuke-equipped rockets, and landing capsules that end their movement within 3 spaces from it: up, down, left, right, and in all 4 diagonal directions. If a rocket, nuke, or landing capsule lands on the satellite, both pieces would be destroyed. Now, your battle module also gives you the ability to take over your opponent's satellites. If you choose to have your clone activate the Takeover battle module, Your gunner needs to have a line of sight to your opponent's satellite, and you then take this over by replacing the satellite token with yours. When this happens, you have the possibility to destroy the opponent's gunners, satellites, and energy shields if they are in range. When there is a satellite versus satellite battle, whoever is the active player wins. When you move your clone and activate this module, you pay 1 energy per gunner to fire a laser, and if there's a clear shot, you inflicted damage on your opponent's station. If there were an opponent's clone, energy shield, satellite, rocket, or landing capsule between your gunner and your opponent's station, your opponent's unit would be destroyed rather than the damage going back to the station. In the case of hitting an energy shield, your opponent would be required to spend 1 energy resource for shield maintenance. Each blast of your laser penetrates deeper and deeper into your opponent's station as the laser passes through any damaged modules and damages the first non-damaged module. If there were a clone, spy, BioDrone, or resource in the module that the laser destroys, that unit would also be destroyed. If they're not stopped, repeated laser blasts can quickly end the game, disabling the resources. When you move your clone and activate a rocket module, you take 1 rocket from your warehouse for each gunner that you want to have launch a rocket at your opponent's station. Then place that rocket as many spaces in front of your gunner from the die roll from the beginning of your turn. In subsequent turns, these rockets will continue to move forward toward your enemy station the number of spaces from your die roll. On the final roll into your opponent's station, the rocket damages the module it finally lands in, and anything on that module. If there were an opponent's clone, energy shield, satellite, rocket, or landing capsule between your gunner and your opponent's station, your opponent's unit would be destroyed rather than the damage going to the station. If this rocket were one that you attached your nuclear warhead to, the damage is much greater. Instead of just destroying 1 module, the nuke has the potential to destroy 5, the center module, and then up, down, left, right of the center module. Rockets are a good way to get damage into your opponent's warehouses quickly in the game. You can send invaders called BioDrones from your gunners to your enemy's station. When you move your clone and activate a BioDrone module, you take 1 BioDrone from your warehouse for each gunner that you want to have launch the BioDrone at your opponent's station. When in flight to your opponent's station, the BioDrone tokens are referred to as landing capsules. Once they land in your opponent's station, they become BioDrones. Landing capsules are sent over to your opponent's station just like rockets. However, when they land in your opponent's station, instead of exploding and leaving a damage token in the module, your BioDrone exits its capsule and can walk through your opponent's station, moving around similar to your opponent's clones. Except they have the ability to act as a barricade, as your opponent's clones cannot walk through your BioDrones. And your BioDrones also can't walk through your opponent's clones. Another option for destruction that your BioDrone has is that when your BioDrones are armed, they then can try to hunt down and exterminate your opponent's clones. You have the option to move each one of your BioDrones on each turn, and this would come after you move your clone and activate the module. You would then have the option each turn to move each one of your BioDrones the number of squares equal to the number on the die roll at the beginning of your turn. A couple finer details of BioDrones. Landing capsules can land on damage markers, but once your BioDrone leaves, they cannot move through the damage marker. One special move for your BioDrone is that if their landing capsule ends up in a warehouse cell, they remove the resource, if any, that they land on, and then they can move freely through only this warehouse, removing a resource if they land on it. Once they exit this warehouse, they can't re-enter, nor can they go into any other warehouse. Another cool toy that you have in your battle zone is a Thermite Mine. These blow up deep within your enemy's station. When you move your clone and activate a Thermite Mine module, this gets launched from your gunner's line of sight and detonates up from the deepest level of your opponent's station, depending on what was rolled on the die roll at the beginning of the turn. Place a damage marker on this space and remove any clone, BioDrone, or resource from the space. This is one of the only ways to disable the production zone, especially early within the game. Now, if that weren't fun enough, let's explore another option in your battle zone. It's called Espionage. Espionage lets you turn an opponent's clone into a spy, and spies can do things like carelessly activate opponents' modules to waste their resources. If you move your spy to an armory or the lock between your opponent's warehouses, your spy has the ability to steal one of your opponent's resources at the very beginning of your turn, and then they can place this resource in your own warehouse as long as your warehouse isn't completely shut down of that resource. So when you move a clone to the Espionage module and activate it, if there is an opponent's clone in your gunner's line of sight, they can turn it into a spy, regardless of what level they are on in the station. And if there were more than one clone within your gunner's line of sight, you choose which one of them you want to turn into a spy. Once you turn an opponent's clone into a spy, you replace the clone with a clone of your color. Now when it's your turn, you have the option to activate this spy rather than one of your own clones. Your spy operates under the same rules as your opponent's clones, as it can pass through your opponent's clones and is stopped by your own BioDrones. Your spy is not armed by you, but by your opponent's armory, so watch that you don't destroy your BioDrones if near them. And then there's a counter espionage module. This is a module that doesn't require a gunner to use. When you have your clone activate this module, you pay the resource cost, and this will let you turn one of your opponent's spies in your station back into a clone under your control. To do this, just replace the clone with one of your clones. Now let's talk about repair. When you move your clone to activate a repair module, you just consume the resource shown on the module and repair either one or two modules by removing the damage tokens. Removing one or two depends on which repair module you activate. This is one of the other modules that doesn't require the use of a gunner. So you know, in order to win, you have to disable your opponent's station to the point where they can't inflict damage on you this turn or any subsequent turn. Let's look at a few ways that this can happen. Destroy all of your opponent's clones. When your opponent has no resources or no access to resources and runs out of ammo. Your opponent has no way to access the battle zone and no way to repair it. Your opponent has no way to access the production zone and runs out of resources. There's no way for your opponent to produce new gunners and they lost all of theirs. Sometimes you get a combination of these. In each of these situations, your opponent feels like they're in checkmate, and you're going to realize when there's nothing else that you can do. You're going to check this each turn to see if you get into that situation, but usually your opponent lets you know, and sometimes they resign before you actually reach that condition. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed learning Septikon. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/moderntablegamer. You can also like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and always remember, if you're not playing games at least once a week, the planets will not align and will never achieve world peace.